Right, so we're at 10 o'clock according to my... Oh, we've got another coming in. Sorry about the little ding-dongs. It's just to remind me that there's somebody waiting to come through. There's somebody else joining us, so let me just check. Okay. Claire is arrived, yeah, okay. Right, so hi guys, 10 o'clock, so we'll get started, but we are missing a few people at the moment. Obviously, I expect, you know, most of you have got your kids at home at the moment, which makes things extra tricky, especially if you're, you know, doing this sort of training. So do appreciate you actually getting here. It's a big step. Especially when you've got, you know, a lot of you I know have got kids with additional needs. So I do know how hard it can be. So basically, I'm Mandy. I'm the founder of A Stitch Different, which set up 7 years ago, and we specialise in sensory equipment. But more important, I'm a parent carer. I have a 24-year-old son. My sister's got a 27-year-old with autism, and life has thrown us some challenges along the way. And sleep was one of the big problems. Sleep and sensory are his two main issues. So we set up Stitch Different, specialising in sensory equipment. And then the parents that were contacting us, it was pretty evident a lot were having sleep issues, and that statutory services aren't meeting that need. And we're based in Cumbria. And I approached the local LD team, and there was nothing happening. So basically, it's a case of get on your ass and, you know, do some training and try and help other families. So that's what we did. So we got some funding and went off to the sleep charity, and I undertook the sleep practitioner training a few years ago, and I've carried on that training ever since. And in the last 12 months, we've got somebody else joining us, I think. No, maybe not. We've got another one coming in. Here we go, we've got a couple here. Humbly and Tessa here, Debbie. Hi. So just a couple more coming in now. Oh, there's Kimberly as well. Are we all in? Right, I think that's everybody now. So just doing a brief introduction. Say my name's Mandy, Amanda Bland, as you see on my official title, but nobody ever calls me that unless I'm in trouble. So basically just giving a bit of an overview of the lack of services really that's out there, statutory services around sleep. There isn't anything, or very little. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. In conjunction with the sleep charity, we've undertaken training with the Tizad Centre, University of Kent, delivered this course several times now with the LD team, because we've recently got some funding, and we've actually trained 6 new practitioners in the last few months. And Debbie, one of our directors at Stitch Different, who's waving at you there, is just completing her training. So she's sitting in with me today. You might spot a resemblance. She is actually my twin sister too, but also has 2 children with additional needs and a grandson on the autistic pathway. So, you know, for all of you there with kids with additional needs, we certainly know where you've been and where you are and how life can be. So what I'm going to start and do is I'm going to share my screen with this fabulous little PowerPoint that we've got set up. I'll be honest, this is the first time I've delivered this course in this format online, so it's a bit of a new one. So it's one of them where might be a work in progress. So let me just see if I can share this. One second, I'm just going to change that up. There we go. Can you all see that? Hands up. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, welcome to sleep session 1. Okay. So basically a bit of housekeeping and group agreement. So confidentiality obviously we're all here because we're having problems with sleep. But obviously what goes on in this group, really, it needs to stay in this group. Please don't share any information here. Oh, Mia's joining us. So please don't share any information. Mutual respect. Obviously, everyone's in different places. Everyone has different tolerance levels. Obviously, children's interruptions. We're in lockdown. We're going to have the kids at home. I'm lucky I've escaped today and I've got to the office. But there's no heating on, so you can tell I've got my coat on. I am recording this session purely for you guys, as in case there's any technical issues, or if there's if the kids need your attention, because obviously your kids come first, they have to. So this PowerPoint and the conversations we'll have, I will share just to this group. We've got another lady coming in. Oh, I think just like that. So yeah, that's the reason I'm recording it. Comfort breaks, I'll give you a check-in, maybe 30 minutes in, and just see if you're all right, whether you want a quick break. We have, obviously, have you all used Zoom before? Can you put your hands up? Yeah, we all right? Are we all okay with Zoom? Obviously, there's a questions or a chat box at the top there, or the bottom, or however it's set up on your screen. Debbie's monitoring the chat. So Debbie stays in the room with me to keep tabs on the chat. And we have another lady, Mia, one of our team, who has just joined us. Mia, can you wave your hand at everybody?
Hello.
Oh, hello. There you go. Hi, Mia. Do you want to mute off for a sec?
Yeah.
Marvellous. Thanks, Mia. So Mia is one of our fabulous success stories, but also part of our team at A Stitch Different as well. We've also got on board Diane. Diane, do you want to give us a wave? Diane is one of our seamstresses at A Stitch Different, and is looking to extend her knowledge around what we do at Stitch, and also has got a husband that doesn't sleep particularly well at the moment, so she's hoping to pick up some pointers along that way. Right, so any questions, if you just pop them in the chat box. If I can ask you, if you're not on mute, can you mute yourselves, please, just in case there's any background, because we get a little bit of feedback and it can be a little bit distracting for some. Is that all right? So, my screen has decided to have a little, there we go, a little activity, just a little bit of an icebreaker, but this also helps me to help you in the future. So we're going to do a little game of Sleepy Bingo. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'd like you to put your hand up to if this applies to you and your family. So who of you are up with the larks, up bright and early in the morning? So really, really early. I'm an early lark. I'm up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and raring to go. Anybody? Have we got any hands up? Debbie, can you see? Yep. Who nods off to the telly? Got the telly in the bedroom. Now, this is more your children that you're supporting, I would apply. But if you want to see it's you, that's that's fine too. It's just, this is to help us to identify in the future some of the things that might be a reason why things might not be sleeping particularly well, and tying it in with the information you've already given us and the information that we might ask you to do for us in the future. Let me just... 1 second. Looks like we've got... Right, we're just checking we can see everybody on the screen. So, who needs a blanket or a duvet or covering up even if it's really hot? Who needs a blanket on or something? This, yeah, again, your children ideally, or yeah. So have we got hands up, Deb? Yeah. I do. I have a cover, but then I stick my foot out. Who needs a pillow? Anyone need a pillow? Your kids need a pillow? Right. Debbie's just making a little note, just a little tab on, because this actually, this bit of info does help us. Okay. Or even in your packs that we've sent you out, at the back of the workbook, or it should be on, or it might be on a separate piece of paper, you should have this, but basically what's on my screen. If you wouldn't mind checking off what applies to your family, that would be really useful as well. But as a bit of an icebreaker, we'll just carry on through. So, who likes a bit of supper before they go to bed? We've got any hands up? Yep. Debbie's just making note. Quick drink for me. Okay. Who won't get up in the morning? How many of you have got kids that will not get up ready for school? Caroline's got a hand up there. I can see that. For some reason, I'm not seeing everybody on my screen. Ah, right, okay. If you've not got your camera on, that's fine. If you wouldn't mind just sort of ticking the boxes that apply to you on the bit of paper we've sent out to you. I think this one's going to have a lot of hands up. How many of you wake often during the night? Yeah, quite a few of you. Okay. And I think the same again with this next one. Anxiety. How many of you got problems with anxiety? Yeah. Especially at the moment with COVID, it's a really, really tricky time. And anxiety around COVID, and then obviously the schooling. Are they going to see the friends? Are they not? Can they do what they want to do? Lack of routine. It all sort of ties in there. Now then, who shares a bed with a snorer? I've got 2 hands up here because I have a husband that snores and 2 dogs that jump on my bed, and both of them snore. So my sleep is a little bit disrupted by that. And then total darkness. Who needs total darkness? Yeah, Kimberly, that, yeah. And how many of you need to get up for the loo? Yeah. So the kids are getting up quite a bit for the loo during the night. Okay. Interesting one. How many of your kids are hyperactive or appear hyperactive and absolutely full of beans when they should be asleep? Loads of you? Yeah. Thanks, Claire. Yeah, yeah. It's a biggie, is hyperactivity, and obviously that relates to quite a few different conditions, but there is a big link between hyperactivity and sleep deprivation. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Who likes a light on? Like a night light? Yeah? Few? Remembers the dreams. This is right? Paul's got one there, yeah. Again, there's a big thing with that one. We'll talk about that later. Sleepwalkers. Have we any sleepwalkers? No, that's all right. Can't sleep if you've had a late meal. I'm one of them. If I have a meal after sort of 7 p.m, I won't sleep. Yeah. Diane, Paul, yeah. Something to take into consideration, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's just basically just some ideas of where you're all at, and the information that we're going to gather. Not to be nosy, it's to help you, and that's what we do. And basically, what we're going to be doing is, thankfully, you've all sent in your questionnaires, and with little bits of information like this, it helps us to identify what might be going on with your children or yourselves, and so that we can adapt the programme to make the most benefit, really, to give you the right strategies. And it's really, really important that you know what sleep is, why you need it, and a little bit about sleep cycles, because I think whilst we're going to be talking this morning, you will get strategies along the way, but unless and hopefully you'll have some light bulb moments as to, oh, that might be why my child's waking up at X time, or, oh, if I do that, that might not happen. So it's almost preventative. So if we've got a groundwork of what sleep is and what's needed for a successful night's sleep, we might be able to put some minor tweaks in place in between now and the next session, and things might improve. It's quite easily done. Often it's just small tweaks. But what I will say now is when we're doing any changes with many of our kids, and particularly those with autism or other conditions, change doesn't always go down well. And I'll be lying if I didn't say things might get worse before they get better. So you need to be in the right place, headspace wise, to make any changes and prepare yourself, because usually, and I think Mia will back me up on this one, and Mia, if you want to unmute when I've said this bit, things can get worse. Typically days 3, 4, 5 can get pretty crap, if I'm honest. But then after that, the changes become slightly more embedded in a positive way. And, that's when things start to settle down and sleep improves for both the child and yourself. Is that your experience, Mia?
Yeah, definitely. I just found that like the small, really obvious changes that weren't obvious to me, in the beginning, it was those ones that were really easily changed, and within even a couple of nights, we really started to notice a difference, and it really improved from there. So
you had a positive effect on your behaviour as well, didn't you, by changing this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, if you're getting a much better night's sleep, I mean, my little lad, he was up, all hours of the night, running around. It was like he was asleep because you couldn't, his eyes were wide awake, but you couldn't interact with him at all. It's like you were there, but he didn't see you. And, after a few changes and a strict routine in place that we followed and still follow now, he's much better. And it didn't really take sort of much effort. It was just the changes that we didn't know about that we needed to sort of help him, and it did make a difference to him.
Brilliant. I mean, Mia is one of the good success stories, and what this program there's one of Mia's little kiddies. The Sleep Charity and Stitch Different and the Sleepability Programme, none of this is about controlled crying or any of this malarkey. Your child's needs come first. We have to recognise the needs and we have to address the needs. What the programme is about is like a positive behaviour approach, and it's listening to your child, what their needs are, and adapting. So it's quite simple. We know, obviously, there's a big talk about melatonin that's given. So that the melatonin, natural produced hormone to help sleep, is often prescribed by paediatricians and other agencies. Now, it's actually now been clinically proven that melatonin, the tablet, which only really helps you get off to sleep, gives on average about 15 minutes extra sleep per night. Working on a behavioural approach can give up to 2.5 hours a night extra sleep. And as a parent carer, I'd rather do a behavioural approach than give my child medication. However, there are some conditions where melatonin production isn't produced, and therefore some children do need that extra little bit. But we'll go into that a little bit later on. But I'm a big believer in, if we can solve it by just a few little tweaks, life will be a lot easier. Okay, my screen's just decided to have a thing. So, introductions. You've heard me waffle for a little bit now. If you'd like to introduce you and your child, so just who you are, where you are in the country, that'll be interesting because we've got a real mix, I know that. Often when I've done these in the past, they've all been Cumbria based. This is the first one I've done on a national, which is absolutely brilliant that we managed to reach people a little bit further afield. So yeah, if you just want to put your hand up and say who you are, who your child is, just a quick one because we've only got an hour with this session. And basically, what do you want from the sessions and any main quick concerns? If it's going to be quite a long conversation, we can speak later on. But who'd like to put their hands up and give a quick hello? Anybody? Have we got anybody wanting to take the plunge?
Claire.
Claire, right, go on then. Debbie, if you want to unmute. Yep.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Claire. I'm from Thanet.
Mhm.
And my son Max is 5 years old. The main thing I would like to get out of this is how to keep him in his bed at night,
Right.
so he doesn't keep coming into us all the time.
Yep, I'm sure we can sort that one out. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, no worries. That's not a bad one to fix. I'm sure we can sort that one. Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Oh, we've got Caroline and Caroline. I think you went up first. Do you want to, Caroline Molyneux? Would you like to say? Mute.
There you go.
Hiya.
Hi, I'm from the Wirral, and I've got a son Charlie who's 10. He's ADHD, and he struggles to settle to sleep at night.
Okay.
He's in his bed for 2 to 3 hours before he actually drops off to sleep.
Okay.
And he's quite anxious about going to sleep and kind of worries and overthinks things as he's trying to go to sleep. So it's trying to help him
Yeah.
kind of to wind down to sleep is my main thing at the moment.
We can work on that one. Probably more next session than this one. You'll get more strategies around that. But hopefully through this session, you'll through the rest of the presentation, there might be some hints and tips that might help. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's next? Tessa, I think you put your hand up. I'm not seeing everybody, unfortunately. Oh, we've got Kelly as well.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Tess. My daughter, my youngest daughter, Iris, she's the reason we signed up. She, like Carolyn's child, Iris really struggles to get to sleep at night. It can take us 2 hours before she falls asleep, and I have to lay with her. It can only be me for those 2 hours, and then she wakes up to 3 times a night, and I have to lay with her again until she will fall asleep.
I can associate with that one. My son was
So,
pretty
yeah.
but it was 15 before we finally got it sussed, but it's not easy. I appreciate it. You're doing great though. Kelly, I think you've got your hands up.
Hi, yeah. My name is Kelly, and my daughter Kyra is 9 years old. She has a syndrome called Wilson syndrome. It's a chromosome deletion.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping her asleep is my problem. She goes to sleep beautiful, but 3-4 o'clock, she's wide awake club.
Okay, might be able to explain why she's waking up at that time.
Okay.
Hopefully you might get a light bulb moment in a short time. It might explain why, and then we'll look at some diaries, and we can hopefully put some strategies in place to help with that.
That's great. Thank you.
Anybody else there? I'm not seeing everybody, unfortunately, on my screen. Yeah. Anybody else want to say? Any more hands up?
I'm Demi. I'm from Barrow, in Cumbria. I've got 2 boys, both one autism, ADHD. Other one suffers quite badly with his anxiety, and he's getting assessed for autism as well. The other one loves his sleep. He'll go to bed between 7 and 8. Gets up through the night sometimes, but it's more to come in our bed, or sometimes it's just like, let's go play sort of thing. But he has naps throughout the day as well. But he's like very my youngest is 5.
Right, okay.
But he's like very hyperactive. He's like on the go constantly,
Right.
even though he has like his little cat naps and stuff. My other one, he says that he sees people in his bedroom,
Yeah.
which has been for about the past year or so. So he's very anxious about going to sleep. So they share a bedroom. So my youngest, he has like a little lava lamp by his bed, and then my other son has a wall light and then like quite a bright lamp on. But he still says that he can see this is like family that he can see, like a mum, dad, kids and stuff. And he's very anxious and needs a lot of reassurance before going to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? What's dad doing? And he got to bed, but you know what I mean? He's got to know
Well, can happily have it sounds like it's quite a lot going on, and if anybody wants an in-between session chat, I'll happily make an appointment to have a phone conversation with anybody that would require a little bit more information around sort of anti-anxiety, or if I don't know an answer, because I am not a clinician, but I am in contact with a lot of agencies and can certainly signpost it to appropriate support should we need it. Okay.
Yeah, I did ask the community paediatrician, because like before I got on this course and stuff, I did raise it with them, just obviously with them seeing, and they were just like, oh, it's you'd probably have to get a referral through to CAMS.
Yeah, well, it could well be, but I'll tell you what, Demi, I'll have a chat with you later about that, because I need to talk to you about the other programme as well that we're running.
Yeah, all right, no worries.
Okay. Anybody else like to share? Raise your hand. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing anybody. No problem if that's everybody for now. Okay. Are we all done? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right, so the aims of the workshop. So basically today we're going to introduce the important stuff, the stages of sleep and how to complete a sleep diary. Now, sleep diaries are really, really important because for us to help you understand what's going on with your child. So we'll talk about that this morning, and then we're going to, well, you should have in your packs a copy of the sleep diaries, and then if you want to catch up in between times or you're not quite sure about anything, we'll happily do that. The next session, session 2 on the 20th of Jan, is basically for you to have time to sort of complete these sleep diaries if you want to. For you to get the most out of the programme, we would recommend that you do that. And that way we can help put some strategies, and then we will be talking more about strategies in session 2. There's quite a lot to take in, and obviously with COVID, it's hard for us to do a full 4-hour programme, which is what we would often do. So this is why we're splitting it into 4 little sections. And actually, it's proven to be more effective in solving problems by splitting it up in sections like this. And then session 3 is to help you recognise how you can help your children sleep better and how to implement a plan. With that one, we'll be discussing more around anxiety, planners, visual planners, things like that. And we've got quite sensory issues, things like that. So we've got quite a lot of resources that we can send to you, tweaked to your individual need, okay? And then the final follow-up session on the 10th of Feb is like a recap to go over anything that you're not sure about or to see how you're getting on. Hopefully we'll have some success stories by then, but if not, it's more of a problem-solving session, okay? So that's generally what we're going to be doing there, okay? I've learned now how to work my things up. So, to introduce sleep, why it's important and what it looks like. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Importance of sleep. What are the benefits for you? What are the benefits for your child? So sleep is an essential part of everyone's routine and a part of obviously a healthy lifestyle. So studies have shown that kids who get decent sleep, they have improved attention, the behaviour is generally better, the learning is generally better, more improved, the memory and the overall mental and physical health. So not getting enough sleep in the long term can affect both your children and you guys, because it can obviously affect your blood pressure, it can lead to obesity, depression, which is a really common one, particularly with the adults supporting their children who are sleep deprived. So children's brains need sleep to restore and to grow. And so you're more able to solve problems if you had a good night's sleep. So, and obviously at school, you're more able to learn and then just enjoy life as a whole that bit better. So, you are more able with a decent sleep to, make more positive decisions, remember and learn new things, got more energy during the day. I know some of you have got hyperactive kids. But sleep is an essential part of your routine for your body clock, which we'll talk about a bit more. But basically, it's to help you grow and to function. So it will help your physical, developmental, and it's just a really important part of staying healthy, really. And also regarding relationship, lack of sleep can affect your relationships. Sleep deprivation, that's why you're all here, I'm guessing. So again, I'm going to just put a couple of notes. Give me, if you don't mind, one each of you, give me one thing that impacts you and your child around not getting enough sleep. For me, it makes me grumpy. If I don't get enough sleep, I'm not worth, don't be near me. I'll bite your head off. So anybody want to say how it impacts you? For you and your child, how you think it affects you or your child?
Me and my kids we both get irritable.
Irritable, that's a
And
word.
my youngest son, he gets quite violent.
So we've got irritable, angry, violent. They're quite extreme. Anybody else want to unmute and just shout something out?
She gets behavioural, grabby, and communication goes down.
Communication, yeah. Communication. Anybody else?
Less patient, and he gets very clingy and wanting to sit on me all the time with not having the patience to do it. That gets me annoyed as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah,
I
upset.
struggle to concentrate when I've had much sleep.
Concentration. So we've got upset, concentration, no patience, impacts behaviour, impacts communication, becomes violent, can be angry, irritable. Any more words you want to chuck at me, please? Give us some good ones. No more? Right.
Frustration.
Frustration.
Starts the day off wrong, just
Yeah.
like you've got on the wrong foot all day.
Yeah, and it's that whole scenario of, you wake up, you burn your toast, it's raining outside, you're running a bit late, you've not had your brew. How do you feel if you've had a good night's sleep? Oh, well, I can just deal with that. It's one of them things. If you've had a bad night's sleep and that day happens, how are you for the rest of that day? It's a bit crap, really, isn't it? So sleep deprivation, this is when we were allowed to do face-to-face workshops and have you all in the room. This was taken from a workshop I did back in January last year. That was the last one I was able to do face-to-face, and this was some of the stuff that came out. So, affecting, your social, reaching milestones, attachment issues is a big one with sleep deprivation. Challenging behaviour impacting on your health, relationships. If you're obviously at the moment, employment, a lot of us are either working from home or just not working at the moment, but it can impact your employment. I know families on one of my other programs who actually lost his job because he was so shattered. Your dieting, your obesity, you just pile on weight, and that again, different hormones are released when you sleep that affects how you feel in terms of being full or feeling hunger. There can be safeguarding issues in terms of, your child's become quite violent. I know a lot of children on some of our programs have mentioned that one. But one of the biggest things with sleep deprivation is hyperactivity. Hyperactivity is a symptom of sleep deprivation. I know some of the children may have ADHD and similar conditions, but actually hyperactivity can be part of sleep deprivation. As parents supporting a child, with poor sleep, we're shattered. May not seem it, but our kids are equally shattered. And they're just doing the best that they can with the skills that they have got to function in the world. So this is why it's so important to support our children to learn to sleep, because sleep is a skill. And particularly in terms of self-settling, so when they wake up in the night, some children haven't learned yet how to do it. So it's quite a big one, and it just impacts us all so much. Going on to the next slide. So what do you think sleep looks like? If we were to put it on a graph. Is it a case you just nod off, you go straight into a deep sleep, 8 hours later, hey presto, I'm wide awake? As in, the graph A on the top left there. Anyone think it looks like that, where you just nod off? Or do some of you think it goes up and down during the night, different parts? Do you think you start off awake, nod off, go to a deep sleep and then wake up again? Or some people just think you go from awake down to a deep sleep and that's it till you wake up in the morning. All right on that one. So do you think, to be honest, the answer is the top right-hand side there. Basically, we go up and down in cycles throughout the night. Now, you may have heard of the types of sleep that we have during our night. And basically, there's two stages. There's non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. I'm just going to move on to there. So what are the stages? There we go. So rapid eye movement and non-rapid eye movement sleep. You may have seen when your kids were babies that their eyes would flicker when they're asleep. So the little flickering. When tiny babies are sleeping, they do a lot of rapid eye movement sleep. And basically that's brain development sleep. So you do see a lot of that, and a lot of children, they say, spend an awful lot of time in that. Non-rapid eye movement sleep, that's where all the physical stuff comes on. So that's when your growth happens, and you do grow overnight. So that during your night sleep, that is when it all happens. So going to the different stages. So we have stage 1, so your first stage of sleep when you're going from wakefulness to nodding off. So your eyes are shut in, but you're still easily awoken. So if you're with your child and you're supporting them and then you move, hey presto, I'm wide awake. And sometimes you think, oh, I've nodded off, and somebody says, you asleep? You say, no, I wasn't. This is like stage 1. So you're often woken in this stage. So going from stage 1, from wakefulness to stage 1 takes generally about 5 or 6 minutes. Then we drop into stage 2. This is your actual sleep. So your temperature starts to drop a little bit, your heart rate slows, you lose more awareness of your surroundings, and your muscle activity decreases, and your body is then preparing for that deep sleep. This is restorative sleep. So if you've been busy during the day, and it's all where your muscles are developing and growing and your bones are growing. So stage 3 and 4, this is the deeper sleep. So if you were to disturb somebody, say a fire alarm went off, or even your child comes into you and you're a bit groggy and disorientated, chances are you're in stage 3 or 4, because you just lose complete awareness of where you are. And often our children are at different stages in their sleep cycle to us as adults, because we go to bed at different times. And this is sometimes where we get a few light bulb moments as we go on to the next bit. So level 3, you are going to be disorientated and groggy, but it's such a big period of sleep for that muscle development and growth. So this is the time when you're more likely to get, if you have children who have wet beds, do any sleepwalking or night terrors. Night terrors can be quite disturbing if you've ever witnessed one, but they happen particularly in children generally under the age of about 8, and they don't harm the child. If ever you witness a night terror, I know it's horrible, please don't try and disturb your child unless they're at danger of self-harm or hurting themselves or somebody with them. So just let them ride it out. You don't remember a night terror. Nightmares are different. They happen at a different part of your sleep cycle, and that's a slightly different story. But these are the times when you're in that deep sleep that you get this sort of thing. So night terrors, sleepwalking, wet beds. We had a big problem with wet beds for many, many years. We unpicked it to being anxiety-based, and when we dealt with the anxiety, the bedwetting stopped. And even now, I'd say probably in the last couple of years, we have had the odd wet bed, but I then know it's related to anxiety, and then we know what to deal with it. So then we're going to move on to rapid eye movement sleep. So this is your dream sleep. Now, during REM sleep, this is where all your brain function and processing goes on. So it's really important that we get this bit of REM sleep. and your breathing changes. It might look a bit irregular. You've got your eyes might be flickering. You can be easily woken during REM sleep because you're at that semi-wake point almost. And our sleep cycles generally take between 90 minutes and 120 minutes. Everyone's different, everyone's unique. But typically, you know, we go in these sort of like 90-minute segments. So we're going to just move on there. So they're really the important parts of what we're doing in our sleep. So going on this little graph I've got here called a hypnogram. And if ever you go for a sleep study, this is what we look like. This is what the results look like. So you go from your wake point at the top there, I'll move my little pointer. So we're dropping down. So our first sleep cycle, we're dropping down into sleep stage 1. This can take, you know, about 10 minutes or so. So if you're in the room with your child, you may have looked in your packs ahead of things and seen some strategies around how to support your child to remain in sleep, as in either a rapid return strategy or a gradual retreat. So basically your gradual retreat, which is the most common strategy used when supporting a child to learn to sleep. And I know some of you are already with your child when they sleep. So if you were to be in the room with the child and you sort of try and escape, say within the first sort of 15, 20 minutes, chances are your child's going to wake up. We need to make sure they're right down into level 2 before we try and, you know, leave the room. Okay. And obviously then into your level 2 and level 3. So it's your deep sleep. So this deep sleep at the early part of your sleep, this is what the first part of your sleep is where you get more deep sleep. Around 2 hours after nodding off, you would often hit a short burst of REM sleep for about 10 minutes. Now, this is really important, that how many of your kids wake up around 2 hours or 4 hours after they've gone to bed and they're bright as a button and wide awake? There's a few of you there, isn't there? Right. That's because they are waking up at that point in their sleep cycle. Now, think about environment with this. When a child nods off, if they were to wake up and the environment has changed, no matter how subtly, and particularly those with sensory issues, thinking the children with autism, maybe ADHD, if things have changed, i.e. temperature, lighting, and you know the environment, say they've nodded off downstairs and you've carried them up to bed, they pick up on those subtle changes. And those subtle changes, when they hit that semi-wake point, they think, hey, presto, they feel the subtleties. And hey, presto, I'm wide awake. And then it's, ma'am, ma'am, or they're coming into you. That's often what will happen. Think environment is a massive part of sleep. So if you've got, say, a colour changing lamp, or the lighting has changed from when they nodded off, say you had a landing light on when they actually, for you to get out, and then you turn it off and that light is coming under the door, that could be a trigger for them waking. So it's these little things around environment that can play a massive, massive part of waking. So just take that into consideration. So think about temperature. The ideal sleeping temperature is between 16 and 18 degrees. It's actually better, a little bit cooler than too warm. If you get too warm, again, that can be in a hey presto and wide awake. Lighting. So it's really important that the room is the same right throughout the night. So any light from, say, the windows, blackout blinds are a brilliant one. So lighting around, say, the windows. Have you got any sounds? Are there any, you know, say the telly's on downstairs quite loud and the kid can hear it upstairs, and then you've gone to bed and you've turned it off? That could be a hey presto, I'm wide awake. It's little things like that. I mean, we used to have a child that it turned out it was a bus went past the window at a certain time. And it was when they'd gone to bed at 7 o'clock, the bus went past at, say, 10 o'clock, I'm wide awake. So it's all these little things that can contribute to why a a child might wake. So think about environment. So smells, lighting, temperature, has the covers come off? Have they had sensory input? Things like that. And we'll talk about the sensory stuff a little bit later. So again, we're going these cycles. So between an hour and a half to 2 hours on each cycle. And then as we go through the night, we sort of like 4 hours in, we come to this almost wake point again. So you come out of your REM sleep, but then you come to this almost awake. Now, if a child hasn't learned how to self-settle, that's one of the things where it's, I'm wide awake, I'm coming in. One of the biggest tips I can give you, if your child was to come into you and you're wide awake, is to say to your child, when you put your child to bed, I'm sure you've all got your own little words or what you say, like, oh, night, night, sleep tight, love you, whatever. Whatever words you use, and it could be sleep time, night, night, whatever that phrase is, if your child comes in, gently guide them back to bed and don't engage, no eye contact, and just say whatever it was you said when you put them to bed. Just those last 2 or 3 words. And the idea is that this is where you get a little bit resistant sometimes. They will sort of maybe argue. But if you don't engage, keep your gaze down, but as hard as it is, try and remain as calm as possible. So if you go back and your last words were, night, sleep tight, and then you say, it's bedtime, night, sleep tight, you're giving the child more to process and they're going to become more alert and more awake. So it's really, really important to keep interaction to an absolute minimal, keep your gaze low down. You know, you're still there, you're still mum, but gently guide back. And if you have to do that, you know, half a dozen times during this, you know, changing time, we need to do it. But please don't add anything into that and try not to engage. It's blooming hard. This is one of the hardest bits, but honestly, it does work. It really does. So that's one of the good things. Think about environment, no engagement, and then during the night, as we say, hopefully we've got our little darlings back to bed and they're sleeping. They will eventually learn to self-settle. It does take time. Typically when we're instigating a new sleep program and we're teaching a child how to go to sleep, it can take about 2 to 3 weeks of consistency. Now, the important thing when we're doing a new program is same bedtime, same get up time, 7 days a week, I'm afraid. If you let a child lie in, it's going to knock out their circadian rhythm, their sleep cycle, and their whole sleep-wake system. So, and same with, I'll allow you to have a late night. If you're giving a child a late night, say for Christmas or a birthday or something, actually, you're depriving your child of sleep. You're not actually giving them something, you're depriving them something, because the next day they're going to be grumpy and cranky. Okay. So obviously the other thing is, if your child nods off downstairs, it's a tricky one. We would try and get the child upstairs first into the room you want them to sleep in. There's no right or wrong. Some people like their child in with them, and that's fine if that's your lifestyle, no problem at all. But eventually, as the child gets older, it becomes harder to actually change that behaviour. So think about where you want your child to sleep. Think about the environment. Is the environment stimulating? If a child's got lots of toys going on, things like that, in the room that they can easily access and play with, that's great during the day, but we need to make the environment of a night sleepy. We need that environment to be sleepy. So yeah, back to our little, I can digress sometimes when I get on one. So here's our sleep cycle. So later on in the night, we do more REM sleep. So this is your brain, your processing. So if we don't get enough REM sleep, this is obviously where sometimes anxiety can become a little bit higher. So we need to encourage staying in bed and getting enough of all our deep sleep and REM sleep. So typically we would do 4 cycles throughout the night. In your books that we sent out, your little workbook, there is a guide in there of typically how much sleep somebody would need. So a typical 7-year-old would on average need around 10.5 hours sleep. We all wake up from time to time, no matter what. We rarely will all sleep completely right through the night. Just as adults, we've often learnt that when we come to a semi-work point, we just turn around, tuck up and nod back off. Sometimes our kids need to learn that. And the way we do that is to sort of like guide them back in, don't engage, let them learn, and they will learn. They will learn. Okay. Now, where's my thing not working? My PowerPoint decided to have one. There we go. Like, some of you may have heard of your body clock or your circadian rhythm. This is your sleep-wake cycle. It actually lasts 24 hours and 11 minutes. And obviously that's slightly different to the 24-hour clock. As adults, we can adapt and we can lose those 11 minutes. Some children struggle a little bit with it. And especially when we've got, clocks going forward, clocks going back. And it's, your sleep-wake cycle controls all your hormones. So when you wake up, say you wake up at 6 a.m, cortisol is produced. So that's one of your hormones. That can be a stress hormone. And then we move through the day at different times, sort of like 10:30, 11 o'clock. That's our most alert time. That's why we put workshops on at around about 10 o'clock, because you're more likely to take it in. Obviously, your reactions there, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, so with coordination. So this is ideas of when you could potentially do things with your child to get the most out of them. So if you want them to work, if they've got schoolwork or anything to do that, maybe, do it early afternoon. That's a good time to do it. If you want them to do hand motor coordination things, just after dinner, a great time. As we go during the day, in line with the sun going down and the moon coming up, melatonin, the natural sleep hormone that's produced in the pineal gland at the back of the eye, that is your sleepy hormone. That is the one that helps us prepare our body for sleep. Things that can affect melatonin are anxiety, stress, and the biggest thing that can affect melatonin production is actually screens. The flickering screens from your laptop, your iPad, the games consoles, and we all know how much our kids love their iPads and the games and things like that. So this is why we always say, please, please turn off the telly, take the screens away a good hour before the desired sleep time. And it could be that your child currently doesn't go to sleep. They don't nod off till say 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. That is when their body clock has formulated currently to nod off. So there is no point in suddenly saying, I'm going to start a new routine. I want my child in bed by 8 p.m. I'm going to turn the telly off at 7 p.m. Doing it as a big jump is not going to work. You're going to be fighting a losing battle because the child isn't ready. So please, with the screen, getting screens off kids is hard. I really, really know that. There's lots of things we can do instead. We call it a golden hour on the hour before sleep. And lots of things that we can do in that golden hour that don't necessarily require a screen. This is a great time for building up that bond with, parent and child. We could do colouring, we could do Play-Doh, we could do Lego, activities that keep the low arousal activities, things that don't get them giddy. So little things like, say doing a bit of Lego, having supper at that golden hour is quite an important one, but nothing too heavy. We don't want our tea, a big tea, within 3 hours of going to sleep, because a heavy meal on your tummy is going to stop your sleep because your metabolism is racing. We need our metabolism to slow down a little bit. A little bit of supper, particularly with younger children, is really beneficial because we've only got small tummies, not as big as mine. And if the meal I would have at 6 o'clock will last me right throughout the night. However, a younger child with a small tummy, their tea probably, they might wake up hungry. So it's important, you know, a little bit of supper, could be toast. I think there's a bit coming up about sleepy foods shortly. And there's a bit in your pack as well about sleepy foods. So yeah, just take that into consideration. So say, what can affect our body clock? So the blue light, as I say, is probably the biggest contributor to people not getting off to sleep. And I'll hold my hand up. I'm a bugger for watching telly in bed and then I can't nod off. If I listen to my body and turn the telly off a good hour before I need to be asleep, like last night I knocked it off at 10 o'clock because I needed to be slightly awake for today, I actually had a good night's sleep. I know if I left the telly on, I know I won't get off for a while. I'll be tossing and turning. Temperature, try and get that temperature nice and regulated. Say the meal times make a big impact. So that heavy meal, as I say, late on at night will impact your sleep. The social activities, all the things that you're doing, if you're doing an activity on the build up to, say, they go to bed at 8 o'clock and they're doing a busy activity, you know, sort of like the bouncing around at 7 p.m, basically adrenaline, another hormone, is kicking around that body. And adrenaline counteracts melatonin production. So it's about trying to keep our children as calm and as regulated as we possibly can. So that can be a hard one. And there are some strategies that we'll talk about in the next session, and you've got some bits in your booklets that will help with that, hopefully. But if you've got children with sensory needs, again, those children their sensory needs need to be met so that they can get right through the night with a decent degree of proprioceptive input. We'll talk more about sensory next time, because once you get me going on sensory, you won't get me shutting up because it's quite a big one. But it can make a big impact. So we need to say, keep calm this hour before bed, calm as possible, taking the telly off. If there's a particular child, the particular program that your child likes to watch before bed, and it used to bemuse me when I had my godson, we would watch the sleep hour on CBeebies and we'd have Iggle Piggle and all that going on. And actually it was on quite late for him for when he needed to be bed. So basically we record it and we play it 2 hours before we want him to go to sleep. So he watches, he still gets his input of the program that he wants, but then we turn it off. So that's just, yeah, routine is crucial. Consistency and routine. And that's why we help develop a plan. And we have like a sleep program. And what the idea, there's an example of a sleep program in your handout. This is the sort of thing that we're going to hopefully create for all of you during this program of what helps your child get to sleep. And basically by having a routine, and visual routines are really, really good. So if you've got sort of, I like to time it myself, you don't have to, but it's I find it useful to put in the time. So we've got an example, a sample bedtime routine in your packs here. So, you know, turn the lights off, turn off screens, you know, calming activity using the child's interests, have a little bit of supper. Bath times are a really good one to help wind down, but keeping the bath relatively cool and not too hot, because if a bath is too hot or a shower's too hot, it can be quite stimulating and trigger off the adrenaline. So we need to keep the adrenaline down as much as we can. So obviously, ideally, we like to put a bath time in as we can. If you don't do bath time, maybe some like massage is quite a good one. And just some nice bonding sort of activities that you and your child like to do. So pajamas on after a bath or a little bit of a massage. Toileting, you know, brush your teeth, go to the loo. Little tip with going to the loo, if you've got a kiddie that wakes up and wants to go to the loo or needs to go to the loo a couple of times in the night, a little tip, particularly with little boys, is a good one. Our bladders aren't actually a funnel like that. They're actually full of little pockets. And what happens is you go to the loo and empty, but actually there's still urine still left in the bladder in these little pockets. So if you stand up, do a little turn around, a little 360 turn, or even walk to the sink, clean your teeth and come back, then try and go again to the loo, chances are you'll then empty the bladder. So that can, again, sometimes help. Watch with certain foods, because blackcurrant juice is a big one in irritating the bladder. So if your darlings are used to sort of Ribena activity, blackcurrant, Vimto that contains a lot of blackcurrant, this can be an irritant to the bladder and might be a reason why they might wake up in the middle of the night. So just, yeah. So basically, what we're looking for, the same bedtime each night, the same bedtime, same wake up time each day, especially while we're instigating a new routine. Once a routine becomes embedded, then if things change, your child is more able to cope with that change. And our kids like predictability. They like to know what's going on. And a lot of children actually thrive on having that same routine. But it's also quite important that if it's different partners or different people putting your child to bed, make sure it's written down. Or I'll give them a copy of your routine. It's about everybody coming from the same place at the same time. I'm running over time here, I've just noticed that. Right, last slide. And something I'd like you all to do, because this will help us to help you more. Sleep diaries. There's an example of one in the back of your workbooks. And this is a brilliant tool to help us and yourselves in future fathom out what's going wrong. So on completing the diary, like on here, we've got, what time is your bedtime routine started? What time were they in bed? Did they self-settle or were they up several times? What time did they go to sleep? That routine. Oops, so that sleep diary there has got the same times in. Yours might not look like. There's an example of the sleep diary in the back of your pack that looks totally different. So have a look at that. What we'd like you to do is, if you can, please complete the diaries that are in your packs and get them, if you can complete ideally 10 days worth, and get them back to me, either by email, post, or take a photo of them and send it up on the Sleepability sleep page, as some of you have been communicating with me on there. That will really help us to fathom out what's going on with your family. That combined with the information you've already sent us, and some of the things we asked you in the Sleepy Bingo, that will help us unpick potential triggers as to why your child isn't sleeping. And we will tailor a programme for all of you so that hopefully we'll get some positive changes. And I hope by understanding some of the things I've waffled on about this morning as to like the sleep cycle, you might fathom out, oh, that's why they're waking up at that time. Is my light on? Am I going to bed when they're in their semi-wake point? Things like that. It might help you understand where or why your kids aren't sleeping. And if we don't understand why they're not sleeping, we can't implement change. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, sorry, Debbie's just asking me something. Right. If you haven't got a routine currently, read through the packs, and there's some ideas of a routine in there. If you'd like more information, I can just drop us either a message on the chat now, and we can arrange a time for a phone conversation or a Zoom. Might be better doing it on Zoom, then we can see each other and have a proper conversation. I'll happily do that with any of you. If you want further information, just let me know and we'll organise it. does all that make sense at the moment? Has it been useful? Yeah, we've got a thumb up there. I found one thumb up. Yeah, yeah. Can you have some thumbs up? Can you use your little? Yeah, absolutely wonderful. If there's anything that doesn't make sense or anything at all, please don't hesitate. Get in touch. If you want a separate either phone call or Zoom catch up, we'll happily do it. If you're quite happy with things, that's brilliant. Fill your diaries in and get them back to us. And your sleepy bingo, if you don't mind. Take a picture of that if you've done that and get it to us. And I think that's pretty much, actually, we've done better than I thought we would. I thought we'd overrun a bit more than we have today. So yeah, there we are. That's it for today. Next session we'll have your information, we'll go through it, and that'll help us talk about different strategies that we could potentially use. Is that all right, guys? Oh, we've got a little one there, Kimberly. Lovely to see you. So with that, we will say goodbye. If any of you want to hang on at the end for 5 or 10 minutes for a quick chat, I'll happily do that as well. Okay, so we will see you on the 20th. Thanks for joining. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.